in honor of the World Cup starting, go Canada, I thought I'd do Soccer Kid, which came out 8 World Cups ago. Wow. In 1993 for the 1994 World Cup. So Soccer Kid is in dual playfield. So if we take off the bit planes and go bit plane 0, 2, and 4, and you get the foreground. There you go. And all the enemies. And then if you put on bit plane 1, 3, and 5, you get the background. So there's the background. So sprite 0 and 1 attached 15 colors is the ball. There it is bouncing. And then sprite 4 and 5 attached are half of the player, and 6 and 7 are the other half. And then, yeah, there's the ball 0 and 1. The thing I really like about Soccer Kid is that certain points throughout the game they use the copper for actual graphics in the background. So on the palette visualizer, you can see there's 2 copperized colors, this one right here and this one here. But if we switch back and forth, you'll notice these colors right here are actually the horizontal parts of the sidewalk, which is a really ingenious way to get extra colors. And then some of the road here, the stripes are also the copper, as you can see here. So right now, even though it's dual playfield, we've got 58 colors and 49 right now in the game. And it says we have a visible area of 293 by 223. The playable area up here is 288 by 200. And then with the HUD, I think it's 224 exactly down. And then the HUD is 304 across. The scrolling and the enemies are all at 50 frames per second. So in the copper visualizer, you can see it's changing color 9 all the way down the screen. So that's the copper sky over here. And then color 10 down the screen, which we saw turns out to be the sidewalk and part of the road here. And then there's actually a bit plane modulo here for the odd plane and a bit plane modulo for the even planes. I'm not really sure what this is being used for. Later on, there's a level with a moving ship. So I thought that it might be used there, but it seems to be in every level. So let me know if you got any guesses about that. With the glitter visualizer on, you can see the enemies are being blit and the little information sign there. And then the tiles that scroll in on the left there and on the right. And when you jump at the top and you fall down at the bottom. It also has a lot of animations in the background, like the TV here. So that is being blit also. With the copper block on, look how much more basic it looks with just a blue sky like that with no copper sky. When you come down, it adds it and just adds a lot more depth. And then you can see when you get down to the sidewalk, and if we go slow, look how it pinks the sidewalk with the copper there. And then the lines on the road as we go down. And this level, we've got the rain, and it's just one sprite. Sprite 2, take that away, and goodbye rain. So there it is without the bit planes. And if we pause it, you'll see that it's vertically multiplexed, so it never has 2 of them on the same scan line. So this one is below this one, and this one is below this one. So it's the same sprite being used again and again down the screen. These little puddles are being blit, and it looks like they blit them even when they're obscured by things in the foreground. If we take the foreground off here, you can see, yeah, that these are all still being blipped. So I guess they could have optimized this a little, but they didn't bother because it was already 50 frames per second. These in-between stage areas also use the copper a lot for the background. Here's just the background here, but if you put the palette visualizer on, this color here is almost everything. It's most of the soccer pitch, except for just the speckles. And it's even some of the flags. If you look, there's a blue flag, a yellow, a green, and a pink. So this half is the palette of the background, and it only has the green and the yellow. The blue flag is right here, and they even throw in a gradient for it. So here's that blue flag. And then for the pink right here, they take the copper and they say that anything that's drawn between here and here using this color will be pink. So they use that for the flag and get enough colors to make it look really nice. Right now with the copper block on, it just looks basic like this. The first flag is the same blue as up here, and the last flag is the same blue as the little highlight here. But as you move the copper block down, you get the sky coming in, and then watch when you get right to the top of the flags. Boom, right there, you get the correct color for the pink. And then watch the first blue one. As we come down line by line, it fills in. And then right here, you get some gray lines that make up the top of the stadium. And then as you move down, you start to paint the pitch with all the different colors. And I just discovered something new, that if you leave the palette visualizer on and you do the copper block at the same time, the palette changes in real time. So watch this one and this one as I come down. Pretty cool. And now with this level, with the rolling hills and sheep in the background and the nice sky, they like always change these two colors with the copper. But what's interesting here is that you can see these two gradients are a little bit offset. So it's giving a gradient to the sky, but also a gradient to the clouds. So if we copper block it right now, you can see that the sky is this peach color and the clouds are this green color. So corresponding again, we've got the peach and the green. But when we move it down, then you can see the gradient start in the sky and the gradient start in the cloud. It's also doing a gradient down here in the field. So right now it looks okay, right? But when you add the gradient, it's subtle, but it really enhances it. And this is that gradient right here. You can really see the subtlety and the care taken with the copper in this level. So see these trees right here that are green? If you bring the copper block to right here, the green would just be one basic color, which looks okay. But then with the palette visualizer, you can see it's just this green color. But if we move it down, look at that. Again, it's very subtle. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different shades of green, and that makes the trees look ever so nicer. So kudos to the developers for putting passion into it. Here, the gradients on the sky and the clouds are much more obvious that they're different. So there's the sky here, and here's the clouds here. One thing I like about some console games is how they have like really big backgrounds, like things are on a really big scale in the background. And Soccer Kid does that a lot, starting with this Venetian level. There's some really good details too. I just noticed this gondola driver real small in the back. The water effect is just in the foreground. So if we do bit plane 0, 2, and 4, then that's the water. And with the Blitter visualizer, it's blitting the top because it's animated. And again, people have to complain about dual playfield and how it doesn't have enough colors. But again, these developers have shown that with some creativity and a lot of hard work that you can overcome that. Because look at this awning, you'd think, oh wow, there's lots of green colors in the palette. But again, that's just one color and the copper being changed. Here's what it would look like with just one green color. But then you come down and you've got a beautiful awning. Here you can see a lot of animated aspects of the background again. You got the sailboats moving up and down. You've got the little reflections in the water, and those are all being blit. Here in this level, the snowflakes are sprites again, and here's another little subtle color change just in these back trees. And here's the DMA stats when you're moving. So the copper, quite a few slots, the blitter, a little bit, but it's the bit planes that are the most, and the CPU. This ship level is the one I was talking about earlier that bobs up and down. So I was thinking that it might be the reason for the bit plane modulos over here. But if it is, I'm not sure why they would leave this setup for the whole game in the copper when it's only this level. So I could be wrong. I hope you're not sick of these copper examples yet, but I really like them. So here's another. So if you notice, this color is white and then red and then white. So that little bit of red is just for this flag here. With the copper block up here, you can see that the flag would have been white, but instead they've got white for the stars. And then when you move it down, it switches to red for the flag. And you notice that everything that would be white below it at this point is red. But then when we move it down farther, we move back to white, and then all these things become white. The tops here and all the snow, look at the difference, red, white. And again, it's all just from this color. I noticed something different with this level. It's not using as many colors for the background. It's like only about 2 here. This one, this dark blue and this lighter blue. If you put the palette visualizer on, I think it might be this one and that one. And then it's got the sky color here. And then what it's doing is using this color to do most of the mountain. So if you go down like this, then all these colors here are this one. So if you isolate the background, there's not too much going on, but there's a reason for that. So to make up for the lack of colors in the foreground for the enemies, here this fish is actually in the background. So they must have used this earlier. I just discovered it now, but it's probably for other enemies in the game too. but you can see it's using the blue colors and the gray and the white. So quite a lot of the back palette just for this enemy. But because it's in the background, it goes behind the foreground. So the fish is behind the bridge. So then it just uses the one copper color to do this whole mountain gradient in the background. This color right here. They do struggle with colors in this level. This frog, for example, blends in quite a lot with the foreground scenery. This is where the AGA version helps because it's also dual playfield, but it's 16 colors in the front, 16 in the back. So it gives more options for enemy colors. I also noticed for the first time here is that when your character goes under the rocks, he'll get shaded. Look at that. So they changed the palette of the sprites. This train level is very interesting because it changes the palette a lot. Right there, and then when you come back out again, right there. So let's watch it in the palette visualizer. First you got this palette, then it gets darker, your sprite gets darker, and then this palette changes, and then this palette changes again. So it's cool that they had this in their arsenal of techniques. We've seen some other games that change the palette dynamically like this. So it would have been interesting to see what they could have accomplished if they could have combined some of these techniques, like use the palette changing in other levels. And then you have something like Kid Chaos, which changed the foreground colors dynamically, depending where you were vertically on the screen. So with unlimited time and resources, I think OCS still has untapped potential. Then when you come out of the tunnel and have this background, it has over 80 colors with all these copperized ones here. In this indoor level, you'd be surprised that it's dual playfield because there's no parallax, but there is a foreground and a background. So bit plane 0, 2, and 4 are the foreground here, and bit plane 1, 3, and 5 are the background. And it also does the shadows here, just in the background. So here's all the bit planes, and you can see the shadow. And if you take it off, then here's just the shadows. And here's the palette for those shadows. They also do a lot of them here. In this section, look at all the blitz going on. All these here and for the conveyor belt, and we always stay at 50 frames per second. So if we go frame by frame here, we can see frame, 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 frame. We can see that all of the crushers move every frame. It's just the conveyor belt that moves every fourth frame. So watch the conveyor belt here. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. And then another example of their great attention to detail. If you get crushed by one of these guys, look at that. Your character actually gets crushed too. It's interesting too how they've designed this level with dual playfield, but not with parallax. So you can see where everything that's just solid shapes in the foreground and the background is just white. So this is the background, and then there's everything. So with these windows, you can see the copper sky peeking through. There's the copper sky right there. And having it in dual playfield also makes it easier for him to go behind everything. Behind the chair, behind the plant. So it's a very high effort game. There's even a little basketball playing in the final New York level. So here's King Kong and a fake McDonald's sign and a hotel, with the Blitter. Look at all the stuff that's going on. So high effort is all you can ask for, right? And we definitely got it in this game. Playing through it again while making this video, I was really impressed by the level design and the ingenuity. A lot of great ideas. So this is a real great game, and I hope you enjoyed watching the video on it. Thanks so much for watching. As always, please like and subscribe and comment. And until next time, take care. Go Canada.